All right, this is a video on the quadratic formula and using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. And we'll start off with an introduction and overview and then go through a few examples. So the quadratic formula is shown over here on the right, and we would read that as x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, keeping in mind that you need to do the entirety of that numerator divided by 2a. Okay. One piece of the quadratic formula that you should know is, I will highlight it in green, this piece under the square root is called the discriminant. And we'll get to that a little bit later in today's video, what the use is of the discriminant. But b squared minus 4ac is equal to the discriminant. So some tips I have for you and some steps to follow, and then we'll go through some examples. You want to have your equation in standard form first equal to 0. That's the only way the quadratic formula will work. So it must look like this. ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's an absolute requirement, otherwise the formula won't work. My tip that I like to follow, and I'm going to model that in this video, is to always write out what a, b, and c are and plug it into the quadratic formula after that. Some more tips: you'll often get two solutions, but you could have either 1 or 0 solutions. Those are possibilities as well. A huge tip I have for you is to try not to do too much in your head. So gradually simplify, write out each step, and if you try to do too much in your head, you're really going to increase the chance that you're making a mistake. I also want you to be particularly careful if a or c is negative. If so, you will probably be subtracting a negative right in there, okay, under that square root. So just be careful with that and look out for that. And lastly, I think factoring is always a lot quicker, more efficient than the quad formula. And so if you end up with integer answers, or even fractional answers, rational answers, you probably could have factored and that could have saved you some time. So just keep an eye out for that. But some of these examples we'll do today are factorable, but we're going to use the quadratic formula just to model and practice. All right, so let's do an example. So 5x squared minus 33x minus 14 is equal to 0. Definitely have a calculator handy for these guys. And like I said above, I literally write out what a, b, and c are, keeping in mind in many cases they're negatives, right? And we're just going to plug into the quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative b. And again, for this first step, I'm not doing any simplifying. I could have simplified that to a positive 33. I just like to write everything out ahead of time and then simplify a little bit gradually. B squared, negative 33 squared, minus 4 times 5 times c, which is negative 14, all over 2 times 5. Okay, so we have a heck of a lot of simplifying to do, so let's get to it. X is equal to 33 plus or minus, and I like to simplify this square root 2 steps at a time. So first I'll do the 33 squared, 1089. And then what I was mentioning earlier with these negatives, we're going to be subtracting what's going to be a negative number. So let's just add on a positive number, throw in a plus sign there, and 4 times 5 times 14. And that's 280, okay? So I kind of kept track of the negative signs separately from then the absolute values of the numbers I was multiplying. And that's all over 10. We can get a little bit closer. We have 33 plus or minus the square root of 1369 all over 10. And 1369 is a perfect square, so that makes things easy, or easier at least. 33 plus or minus 37 all over 10. And now it's time to start our double pathway. So now that we have to deal with the plus or minus, that plus or minus, by the way, is what gives us the option of getting 2 answers, okay? So we will go ahead and do that. 33 plus 37 is 70 over 10, and 33 minus 37 is negative 4 over 10. So my solutions would be x equals 7 or x equals negative 0.4. Okay, and that would be the answer to our two x values, our two answers for what x could be in that equation. Again, that would have been factorable, but the numbers are relatively large and might be a challenging factoring problem. So the quadratic formula will always work in a pinch. Let's do another one. 3x squared plus 7x minus 5 equals 0. And we might see something a little bit different here. So we have, actually, by the way, I want to say first, if we had something like this, we would want to just make sure we subtract 5 from both sides to get our equation equal to 0. So just a reminder that the quad formula only works if our quadratic expression is then equal to 0. So let's write out what a, b, and c are. We have 3, 7, and negative 5. And let's just plug it in. So negative 7 plus or minus a big square root. 7 squared, I'm actually going to do that one in my head, minus 4 times a times negative 5, all over 2a, 2 times 3. Okay, so we have x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus square root of 49. We're going to be adding, again, because we have two negatives, okay? So those, we have a subtraction and then a negative 5 in there, so those will result in a addition of a positive value. 4 times 3 times 5, is that 60? Yep. All over 6, okay? So what you're going to see here is just a square root of a number that's not a perfect square. Like so, okay? And that would be a fine final answer if you're looking for an exact value, okay? So we're gonna leave it at that answer right here, negative 7 plus or minus 109, or the square root of 109, all over 6. Some teachers might rather it look like this, but I like the first answer a little bit better. It's a little more compact, a little cleaner, I think, okay? And then if you are using this quadratic formula to solve maybe a real life example, you were maybe shooting a rocket in the air and thinking about how long is it going to take to land, or solving some sort of real life example, and it asks you to express your answer rounded to a certain number of decimal places, you would definitely want to do the square root of 109 on your calculator, divide by 6, etc. Okay, and get a decimal approximation. So a couple hints here about using the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And if the discriminant is greater than 0, in other words, if it's positive, you will have two solutions. Okay, we will be, in the quadratic formula, we will be doing a plus or minus a positive, a square root of a positive number. Okay, so we will end up with two solutions. If our discriminant, however, is equal to 0, when we're doing negative b plus or minus the square root of 0, that there's just one square root. We'll be doing negative b plus or minus 0, and we will get one solution. And in contrast, if b squared minus 4ac is a negative number, if it's less than 0, there will be 0 solutions. We can't square root a negative number, although a little preview of coming attractions, we will learn in a few videos from here how to work with negative numbers, okay, how to work with square roots of negative numbers. But for now, there are 0 real solutions. There are some complex solutions that we'll be looking at a little down the road. So let's look at these few examples, and I'm going to specify here that we're looking for how many real solutions are there, okay? So we're not right now dealing with the capability of being able to take the square root of a negative number. So all we're doing is finding the discriminant for these, and then we don't actually need to find the solutions. We're just trying to figure out how many solutions there are. So we have A, B, and C, and still I'd like to write them out, but we're just doing b squared minus 4ac and seeing if it's positive, 0, or negative. Okay, so b squared is 3 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 6. I can tell right away that we're going to be doing a 9, and then we're going to be adding on a positive number to that. Okay, so I don't care what the discriminant is. I just can tell already that it is greater than 0. We'll be doing 9 plus a positive number. So the discriminant is greater than 0, so there will be 2 solutions here. Okay, looking at the next one, again, I really encourage you to write down what A, B, and C are. We have a 9, 12, and 4. And let's see what we get when we do b squared minus 4ac. So 12 squared minus 4 times 9 times 4. Okay, so that simplifies down to 144 minus 4 times 9 times 4 is 144. So equals 0. So the discriminant is equal to 0 in this case, so there will be exactly one solution. That doesn't mean the solution is 0. Just the discriminant is 0, so there will be one solution to the quadratic equation that may or may not be 0. It's probably not 0. Okay. And lastly, let's look at this one. You can probably predict what it's going to be here. If a is negative 3, b is negative 2, and c is negative 18, again, we're doing b squared minus 4ac. So negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times negative 18. Okay. When I'm dealing with all these negative signs and subtraction signs, one tip that I have for you is to just do 4ac by itself, just do b squared by itself, and then subtract the 2. So b squared is going to be 4. We have a subtraction. 4 times negative 3 times negative 18 is 216. So my answer is going to be, the answer to the discriminant is negative 212, definitely less than 0. So there will be 0 solutions to this quadratic equation. All right, so that's using the discriminant, just a piece of the quad formula, to simply determine how many solutions there might be. And that's a good place to stop right there.